we're looking back and looking forward, I guess, because my part of the course is coming to an end, and you're going to be spending all your time on it.
It's true.
Why did we do this?
We've been teaching this course since the early 1990s. Dates from a course begun by John Fairbank and Edwin Reischauer in 1939, although we don't teach it remotely as they ever did. And over time, of course, we've changed it time and time again. But in the last 5, 6 years, we've had it filmed for the Harvard Extension School, maybe even longer than that. And they did such an extraordinary job filming it. I am still getting letters and emails from individuals watching around the world. And so we thought this was the opportunity to share our views.
An interpretation of Chinese history, and wanting to share that, but also because we had the ability, with the new platform, with all the investment Harvard made in the course, to be able to take museum objects and do the photography, to invite in our colleagues from the faculty. You know, I think people have just enormously appreciated Professor Owen coming in to talk about poetry, Michael Pewitt giving a lecture on Zhuangzi, and we want to have more of him and more Professor Owen, Renwei on calligraphy, Professor Bai on calligraphy. So it was really a great opportunity to do that. Did you know that when we began, I think we had 27,000 people register for the course?
Right.
Do you know how many we have now?
I do, because I have the figure right in front of me.
He's going to have to check his figures, but
it's
I check every day. No, I don't really, but
44,750.
44,000, that's an amazing thing.
That's an amazing thing.
That's really great.
In 165 countries. Let us give you a bit of demographics about who you are. Your median age is 28. 75% of you, so 3/4, have a bachelor's degree. 12% of our ChinaX learners are in China.
Which is really great because, you know, in part that's because we freed ourselves from being bound to the YouTube platform.
Yes, very important.
Which is blocked in China. But no one really had been able to reach an audience in China before.
The rest of the Harvard X courses, I think, less than 2% are in China. And our friends in China do look into those courses as well.
So we hope that we will be able to move all Harvard X courses onto servers in China, so they won't be dependent on YouTube, and we hope to have Chinese translations as well as translations eventually into other languages.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things that we've learned is that this is a course that for you can be self-paced. There are courses, as we got, on modern Chinese history, and different parts of modern Chinese history, on the history of the People's Republic in higher education, and that's how we've designed this into a series of both connected and separable courses. But if you want to take the whole thing and start late, it's quite possible to do this, and to go back at your own pace. Once you hear about, for example, the rise of the Ming and the global commercial impetus of Ming and Qing times, you may well want to then go back and think of earlier periods of globalization, such as the Mongol period that we've just discussed.
And you know, do write to us and tell us what more you'd like to see. We hope to keep adding modules, not necessarily as required parts of a course or a sequence, but perhaps to have many new sequences around particular kinds of subjects in this. We're also asking our ChinaXers to help us continue with the donation. But let's not worry about so much about the donation as what surprised you about doing this course?
The incredible engagement of our learners. The sophistication and insight of these answers that we get really make one take a step back. I'm sure the same will be true as we get into more modern times where everybody, and particularly when we get into contemporary times, the history of the People's Republic, where China is today, economic and political reform, everybody will have an opinion. And one hopes that those opinions then will be well grounded in some of the materials that we'll be sharing with you.
You know, when the course began, we thought we'd create a course, it'd be fully automated, we'd push a button, we'd walk out and we'd be done. And what happened was that as learners became more engaged, they wanted more contact with us, and we wanted to know more about you. So between the two of us, it seems to me, and thank heavens for our staff of Megan and Tiffany and Junjie, because without them, I don't think we could have really done this.
We absolutely couldn't have. But now we've become so large. Even if you were to all come to Cambridge and Boston tomorrow, we couldn't fit you into Harvard Stadium.
Wow.
The
I didn't know
iconic,
that.
the original iconic American football stadium, the first reinforced concrete building, major reinforced concrete building in the United States. We could not get 750
Wow.
people into that today.
And that's amazing.
So we'll need to build a bigger stadium.
That's true. Or rent out the Red Sox stadium.
It's
or
too
go to
small.
Foxwoods.
Actually, that's too small.
Oh, wow.
So,
Oh, good.
Foxborough, we
Okay.
could do.
So let's talk a little about where we're going from here. You're going to be really bringing modern China to us. And what plans do you have? What sorts of things should people expect?
Well, we're going to talk about what modern means, whether it's ecology, whether it's political system, whether it's economic development and economic connections with the outside world, whether it's security. Modern China, particularly 20th century China, inherits this enormous landmass from the great Qing Empire, the empire that was larger, longer than any other in all of Chinese history. And the great burden of the 20th century and the 21st century has been to hold on to this space and to make it Chinese. These are among the things we'll be talking about. I'll be doing a lot of the talking, but I'll be joined by Ezra Vogel, who's just written his mammoth book on Deng Xiaoping. I'll be joined by Elizabeth Perry, who's a political scientist with a deep historical sense. I'll be joined by Rod McFarker, who at Harvard taught one of the most popular courses at Harvard College on the Cultural Revolution. We'll be joined by a whole range of colleagues here. We'll be doing more filming in China. Last year, we went and filmed in farming communities, we went and filmed in universities, in temples, and in tea plantations, among other.
That's right.
Among
That's
other,
right. And,
other
and
places.
you'll get to see those, right? And you know, I wanted to sort of bring this to a close by saying some things that our learners have said about the course to this point, which I think will be true in the second half as well. But one of the things somebody wrote from China was, 所以这门课有了一个好处，我能了解到西方怎么样看中国历史。And I think that's
You might
right.
translate,
Oh, I have to
but
translate
please.
it too, yes. It's, well,
麻烦你翻译一下。
Okay. Studying this class has a strong point. It makes it possible for me to understand how the West looks at Chinese history. And I think that's part of our goal, right?
Yes.
Is to give people in China a sense of how the outside world looks at China. And I hope you've appreciated the complexity and nuance with which we do. And also for those people who know nothing about Chinese history, whose
Right.
this first experience of the Chinese past, who've read about China in the newspapers, but now there's a chance really to have a deep historical background in history, literature, politics, institutions. And you'll find that in the 20th century, in the 19th century, 18th century, parts that Professor Kirby is going to be talking about, there are things that are really wonderfully interesting. And you'll want to be there for them.
That's right. And we're speaking to, having just finished this part on the Mongol invasion and the conquest of China, a different China in many ways emerges out of this. Engaged in the world in different ways, more maritime, very much a modern country in comparative terms. Compared, if you look at Ming and Qing compared to Western Europe at the time, and you were to say as late as the year 1820, what is the most modern and sophisticated country on earth? You could easily be forgiven for saying that it is China. We will then deal with also some, from a Chinese point of view, unhappy moments of Chinese history.
Indeed, very difficult history over really from the end of the 18th century through the 19th century into the 20th century.
And into the 20th century.
It was a very, very difficult set of experiences. Many, many people died in
then
wars and rebellions.
Sketch for you the process of China's recovery. What President Xi Jinping calls 中华民族的伟大的复兴.
Right.
In my view, as you'll hear,
the great restoration of the Chinese people.
This is not just something of the last few years or the last 20 or 30 years. It has been a restoration and a return to greatness that, at least I will argue with you, is a century and more old.
Right. You know, when we began to study China, it was still the Cultural Revolution.
Yes.
And we could not imagine the China we're seeing today. And even as we've taught this course, we've seen China change in ways that I don't think we ever would have imagined.
We will take this right up to the last moment in time, and
right.
the last module will be on China's future. And we will ask the question, which is the title of a book I just happened to publish, called Can China Lead? Question mark.
And we'll leave it up to you to answer that. But in the meantime, I want to give you a quote from one of our learners, and it says, "I'll fight anyone to the death who says ChinaX isn't the most dynamic, creative, smart, and fun MOOC in the universe."
Well, we know it is on Earth. The universe is much larger.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.